It really sounds hyperbolic, and I really don't like exaggerating or making making a case that seems just too far-fetched. But it is an act of terrorism. Like terrorism is what? Violence and criminality
Yep.
uh, in order to serve a political aim, and that political aim is to stop women talking about this. And so I think anyone engaging in any acts of intimidation should be seen by the police. I think it's a criminal act. But furthermore, acts of violence against women um, who speak about this, I think that is next level. And I am very concerned that, I mean, where's the quick court system? Surely there's a quick court system, and whoever attacked me is in, I don't know, must be already in court by now because Keir Starmer's opened so many little kangaroo courts all over the country. So I'm sure by now the attacker must be inside.
Kellie-Jay, so good to have you here. I remember we spoke on GB News just after you returned from New Zealand because I was so ashamed of the country of my birth for putting you through that. But now here we have an assault happening in your home country in the UK. How are you feeling about it a couple of days on?
I'm fine actually. I think these men just make my job a little bit easier because my job is to sound the alarm and make sure everybody knows what's going on because I think most people are just totally oblivious to the rights that women are losing. So they make my case quite easy. I think, by the time I realized it was tomato soup, that was the first time I realized anything was afoot. So I didn't have any moments, unlike in New Zealand, where I may have had moments where I thought, I don't know what this liquid is. Um, I'm very familiar with tomato soup. It was the staple diet of my summer holiday as a kid.
Yes, an early lunch, you might say. But look, Kelly, you are a mum, you are a wife, and yes, this time it's tomato soup, but given the Islamist threat to women like you who are speaking up too, do you worry if it's worth it? Do you worry about your personal safety? Do you worry that one day actually you could be the victim of serious harm?
I think I'm so determined that I have to be heard and I have to um, create space in which women can speak. That I don't really dwell too much time on the safety of the issue. I can't say the same for my family. A couple of my children have still not watched what happened in New Zealand. They just can't bear it. And my husband watched it live. So I think for them it's more worrying, but I feel I'm probably wrong, but I feel I'm a little bit, um, untouchable, even though I clearly am not. But I sort of think, no, you're not going to stop me. I'm not going to be intimidated. This is not going to happen. At my next speaker's corner before I fly out to Australia, this Sunday, we are walking down to the actual speaker's corner, to ensure that women continue to have take up room in that space. We moved away from it because men are so noisy when they're shouting about God, that we moved well away from it because it's just not fit for purpose without any amplification for women. But we are walking down there just to sort of say to any men that think that we shouldn't speak, that we will speak in public, and we will take up some vital room that we have lost at Speaker's Corner.
There is an extreme Islam threat, though, in London, isn't there? We've
Yeah,
seen it.
yeah, yeah. Who knew? Who knew? It's only been bubbling under for I don't know 4 decades. But I, I'm a big fan of Christopher Hitchens, and how I wish
Yep.
he was still here to talk about it. But I think any ideology that A is not homegrown, although this woke stuff is very much homegrown, but Islam, I think, poses a specific threat that we're not allowed to talk about. I'm really worried about Islamophobia coming back as sort of a blasphemy law. I think everyone ought to be very afraid of that. I can't quite understand why people are so blasé about it. But it's such a successful campaign. You can shut people up by just saying racist or Islamophobe, and that's it. You've taken their words; they can't speak anymore.
Well, there's so many ways to shut people up. And I think one way that people are being shut up at the moment, Kellie-Jay, is the weaponization of the justice system in the UK. And for example, I'm always very transparent with Outspoken viewers, because we actually have to be careful now about what we say about your attacker, because he's been charged. And there's the potential for contempt of court. But often,
Right.
Kelly, I worry that this shuts down discussions, because it's like, okay, we'll wait till the court case. That might be years away. And by that point, everyone moved on. Everyone has forgotten. But you have made a general point, which I think we can safely talk about, to say it would be wrong if someone is going to jail for 3 years because of a Facebook post,
Mm.
if someone who physically assaults you isn't sent to prison. So I think we can speak hypothetically, Kellie-Jay, about your views on this two-tier justice system and what should happen to men who attack women speaking up for women's rights in public.
Well, my view is and it really sounds hyperbolic, and I really don't like exaggerating or making making a case that seems just too far-fetched. But it is an act of terrorism. Like, terrorism is what? Violence and criminality
Yep.
in order to serve a political aim, and that political aim is to stop women talking about this. And so I think anyone engaging in any acts of intimidation should be seen by the police. I think it's a criminal act. But furthermore, acts of violence against women who speak about this, I think that is next level. And I am very concerned that, I mean, where's the quick court system? Surely there's a quick court system, and whoever attacked me is in, I don't know, must be already in court by now, because Keir Starmer's opened so many little kangaroo courts all over the country. So I'm sure by now the attacker must be inside. But maybe it would have been better if I'd just said something about his gender identity online. Maybe we would have seen the inside of a court a lot
Yeah.
quicker.
Well, then you would have been locked up. I mean, almost certainly, which is obviously the madness of the system that we're dealing with. So, look, let's talk big picture for a moment. Do you think I'm correct in saying that women's rights are under threat in a way that we haven't seen since the 1800s?
I do. I think a rollback. I'm not saying that women in 2024 have got fewer rights than maybe we had in 1908. But certainly I don't know if there's ever been a rollback of rights. There certainly has in other countries. They coincidentally happen to be countries with the vast population being followers of Islam, and governments that are followers of Islam, but certainly not in the West. In countries that are free, supposedly free, have a facade of freedom. I don't think we've seen our rights being taken away this quickly. And I think women's rights and working class rights, I think they all seem to be very closely sort of enmeshed, which is why you are seeing those two things. I think you crush women and you crush families, and you can have access to children, and you really can break down the entirety of society by taking things away from women.
And people don't realize yet, do they? I mean, I think many millions more are waking up, but people don't realize actually that woke ideology is designed to destroy the West in a lot of ways. And as you say, part of that is by breaking down women, by putting women into the same category as everyone else. I mean, I am convinced a lot of this is about rolling back women's rights. And that's where the extreme Islam threat, becomes such a key intersection in all of these discussions.
Yeah. It's a pincer movement, really.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the supposed progressives that theoretically, people that are into progress and call themselves progressive should really stand quite firmly against the rise of extreme Islam, or as I might call it, Islam. You'd think that they would be sort of in opposition, but they don't seem to be. And I think that's this element of racism and ultimately a prejudice that these people, the progressive side, think that actually, if you do belong to a so-called minority group, you really don't have the skills and the wit to behave the same way as everybody else. So it's like a really bizarre, pernicious, genuine racism. So I am deeply concerned that people don't see it. I mean, I'm unlisted from my doctor's surgery because I questioned a pronoun badge. So it's beginning to seep in absolutely everywhere, that if you raise your head above the parapet, and more people are, because they have, I mean, who would know that if you say to your doctor's receptionist, I don't think you should be wearing a pronoun badge, I think it's ideological, I don't think that has any place in the NHS, that the next minute you'd get a call from a manager who would just basically say, we're unlisting you, the relationship between us and you has broken down completely. But I think more and more people are having those sorts of penalties and consequences to things that are really run of the mill.
Yeah, I listened to that phone call, Kellie-Jay, because you posted it online, and it was extraordinary. It was so shocking because obviously what they're saying is so intolerant, but surely it should be illegal to deny you of healthcare at an NHS GP because of your views, or any GP actually, because of your views on what it is to be a woman, which we have to always remember is based on biology.
Well, remember, there will be people with really deeply vile thoughts and feelings and criminal records that are allowed still at my old GP surgery. I mean, I was even told I got another letter saying I couldn't accompany my children, which sort of sounds like I must have done something really egregious and terribly violent. But I've got a friend who's a lesbian who complained about the Pride Progress flag, and she was also unlisted from her doctor's surgery. And we've got women, a woman called into Turf Talk, which is something I call in thing I do. And she'd asked for, well, she'd been offered a chaperone during an intimate exam by a consultant in a hospital. And when she looked down, that chaperone was actually not a female. It was a man calling himself a woman. So then she was in a position where she had one person in there for safety and a man doing the exam, and the person in there for safety was also a man. So it really is everywhere.
Indeed. And we see that women's safety is under threat. I saw a video in a nightclub overnight posted by someone who said that a man had followed them. I mean, this was a woman who posted this. A man had followed her into the ladies' bathrooms. This was not a man even pretending to be a woman. She posted a picture of him. It was very obviously a man. And his excuse for following her into the ladies' toilets was that he identified as a woman.
Yeah, it's not joyful. I don't think he's the first either, and I certainly don't think he will be the last. So this is going to keep happening, I think. And even if he was pretending to be a woman, I think we've got a situation where those men going into those spaces, it used to be that men would recognize it, see it as an issue, and they would go and stop them. But now nobody's allowed to do that because it would be politically incorrect.
Is there any situation where you think a so-called trans woman should be allowed into women's only spaces?
No, I don't think there's any place where I would like a man in any women's group, none of our language, none of our rights, none of our spaces, not even a online reading group. I mean, these men have penetrated so many of women's spaces that this may shock you, and maybe it won't, but it might shock some of your viewers, that there are men calling themselves women in women's stillbirth support groups.
Sorry, absolutely back up. You're going to have to explain that one to me.
As in, there's an online group for women who have suffered stillbirth of their babies, who are recovering from something I just can't imagine. And there are men pretending to be women who've also had a stillbirth. It really is. And wherever your mind can go to the deepest, darkest place, that's where these men sometimes exist.
So, how do you think, as a society, we need to deal with the growing number of people who are deciding to identify as trans? I mean, is it a mental health issue, for example?
I think it's an issue of saying no, actually, Dan. I think there's a generation of children who've had helicopter parenting, who've been told that every 5 minutes, are you happy? Are you happy? Are you happy? And you know what? Life is not necessarily about being happy most of the time. It's about getting to a place where you feel content, where you have purpose. So I think we need to get it out of universities, get it out of schools like yesterday.
Mm.
I mean, Labour are making some noises, but teacher unions, they are totally captured. These are the places we need to remove them. And we just need to bring a robust kind of enjoyment, really, of debate. And I think that's also lacking. You know, sometimes people now just go, oh, I don't want to talk about it. Rather than, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I really did enjoy a good, juicy debate, an
Oh,
argument
yes.
about an
Oh,
issue
yes.
because it's fun.
You won't be surprised. No, indeed. But the thing is, there's a reason, isn't there, why so many Hollywood A-listers now have trans children. And they are not trans. And the problem is, Kelly, I feel very deeply about this. This is a personal one for me as a gay man, because I know what it's like to be a youngster, both before the age of 10 and as a teenager, when your hormones are running wild and you're struggling with your sexuality, and you think maybe I should be dressing up as a girl, maybe I should be, playing with Barbie dolls, whatever it happens to be. And in fact, that is a necessary part of the journey. Now, I am chilled, absolutely chilled, when I think there was a possibility that back when I was 6 or 7, thinking of what that boy was like and those struggles, that there could be some evil teacher, and I really do use the word evil, who would try and convince my parents that I needed to be transitioned in some way, because that would have been an absolutely catastrophic decision for me. So there's not only so much misogyny connected to this argument, there's so much homophobia as well. I mean, how many of these young women who have been putting on puberty blockers and going through the most horrendous surgery that cannot be reversed? I mean, I've spoken to so many of the detransitions, including very brave young women like Cara Bell. So many of them are just lesbians who don't realize it because they're a teenager and there's lots of pressure on them.
It's look, I think we just have to make parents be parents again, and stop outsourcing parenting to someone else. And I think schools need to butt out, actually. I'm really quite alarmed at the fact that some teachers, I went and visited a teacher with a parent, and these two safeguarding leads in senior positions, in in the school, they barefaced lied to this mother. And so I think we need to disabuse teachers of the notion that they know better than parents, because they don't. And the state doesn't know better than parents either. And we also, I mean, slightly off topic, but we also have lots of children now going into state care, daycare, at a really young age, and having much less time with someone who loves them. And I don't mean that, women should stay at home and they shouldn't go back to work, but I don't think we should be pushing women to go back to jobs they don't enjoy and putting their kids in daycare for poor wages. I just don't buy it. So when it comes to homophobia, I mean, one of the bigger kind of promoted kids in America is called Kai Shepley. And his mother admits, he was very girly as a little boy. Her words, not mine. And she tried to beat him. She said, I was worried he was going to be gay. So she tried to beat him out of it. And there's some videos, and it will break your heart. There's some videos of him talking about his mum having a hat that could grow a flower out of it. And he's so cute. And now he's used as a poster girl of what it's like to have a trans kid. It's the homophobia kind of train into trans is unfortunately very well traveled.
Well, it is, because I want to speak specifically about the pronoun debate in the context of celebrity. Because so many of these celebrities, Kellie-Jay, who I know personally, by the way, from my old life, so Demi Lovato, Sam Smith, they are troubled. They are attention seeking. They are making decisions for their careers. So both those individuals said, you can no longer call me she, her. You can no longer call me he, him. I am they, them. I am non-binary. And if you dare try and put me into the category of any biological sex, you are being discriminatory. Now, I think that should be instantly dismissed. I mean, Sam Smith is just like Boy George, right? A camp, gay man. And that's fine. Put your high heels on. Go around and dress as if you want. But you are a man. But what happened, Kellie-Jay, was that the Brit Awards actually decided to drop their best female category that had existed since the establishment of those awards had been somewhere that females in the industry, sometimes overlooked, could be rewarded. And because of Sam Smith, a man, we now have no female categories at the Brit Awards. And I know that's just one example, but it's a pernicious example, isn't it? And it shows how celebrities drive the culture in such chilling ways.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm wondering whether both Demi Lovato, who I think has been very troubled. I think she was a Disney kid or Nickelodeon kid, but I worry about her, and I think that maybe she was trying to identify out of something. And Sam Smith too. I think maybe I don't want to forgive him for his bad behavior because I think he is an adult. But I think there's an element of grooming that's gone on with some of the more influential so-called queer community, like a lot of men that can sometimes pull quite vulnerable gay men into places that maybe they don't want to be. Emma Corin is one that I really do have quite an issue with.
Yeah, so she played Princess Diana in The Crown.
Yeah, I mean that was a non-binary role, right? That wasn't an iconic female role. She actually ruined the last Marvel film that I went to see, I have to say. But yeah, and she's incredibly privileged, and we all know that it's absolute nonsense. We know that it's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything to any of us. Maybe we just bring grown-ups back in the room. But as for celebrity, can't they just go back to having little dogs in handbags? Because it just feels like this is just the latest. I'm such a great person. I'm so kind and accepting that I'm going to let my boy wear a dress. I mean, isn't it? Emma Bunton has got a son who is now, she refers to as a daughter or she, her. And
Charlize Theron, Angelina Jolie. So you think this is almost like a celebrity accessory? It's like, it's no longer good enough just to have a gay or lesbian kid. We want to have a trans kid now. That makes us cool in the woke brigade.
Well, was it good? Well, I don't know whether there was a time when it was all right to have a lesbian daughter. I mean, look at Cher. She kicked her daughter out when she was 17, when she came out. And she's now like a gay icon. I can't quite fathom how that's worked out in her favor. And then her daughter now calls herself a man. I think that's a very, very sad state of affairs. But when it comes to celebrity, I think one thing the lockdown did for us all is it really did take a lot of the shine and sparkle off celebrity. I mean, It did many, many bad things, but that was maybe one good thing.
Absolutely. We should not be listening to these people. But then there's another type of woke celebrity, Kellie-Jay, that I want to talk about in the context of your battle. Because don't you find it extraordinary that women who would have previously identified as feminist champions who are in the media, so I mentioned two earlier, Emily Maitlis and Carol Vorderman, but there are many, and you know who I'm referring to, never once talk about the violence against you. What do you make of that? Why are they silent? But first, hot flashes, sleepless nights, weight gain, joint pain. I know a lot of you are dealing with or have dealt with these symptoms, especially the women in the Outspoken family. Now, obviously, I can't say I've experienced menopause firsthand, but I have heard from so many of you about the challenges that come with it. I'm coming to you with good news today. By now, most of you will have heard me talking about Verso, my launch sponsor. I've been taking their products for months, and it's been absolutely transformative for me. But today I want to focus on all of you amazing women out there, especially those dealing with menopause or perimenopause. I've heard from so many of you about how tough this phase of life can be. Well, Celbean by Verso is designed to target those symptoms head on by addressing the root cause. It's formulated with ingredients that are proven to increase NAD+ levels in the body. That's huge because NAD+ is what keeps your cells healthy and energized, but it drops off as we age and especially during menopause. Here's the thing. Boosting NAD+ can make a big difference in how you feel. Women who've taken Celbean are reporting some pretty amazing changes. Hot flashes disappearing, more energy, joint pain relief, weight loss, and mental clarity. I've even heard from some listeners who've told me their periods have come back or have become regulated and they feel like they've turned back the clock on aging. The ingredients in Celbean have been shown to balance hormones without going the traditional hormone therapy route. It also helps with inflammation and metabolism, which is especially helpful for managing weight and keeping you feeling your best. Plus, these research-backed ingredients have been shown to improve bone health, which is crucial for postmenopausal women at risk of osteoporosis. Now, what I love about Celbean, and I think you will too, is that it doesn't just mask the symptoms of menopause, it tackles the root causes of aging, helping you feel stronger, healthier, and more energized from the inside out. So if you haven't tried it yet and you're ready to take control of your health and feel more like yourself, click the link in the description on YouTube and Rumble or head over to ver.so and use the coupon code Outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. So if you're tired of the sleepless nights, the hot flashes, or just feeling off, give Celbean a try. It's already helped so many of you, and I'm confident it can help even more to feel better. So let me repeat the website, www.buy.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code Outspoken.
Well, it's weird, isn't it? I often say that those feminists could have a very long conversation about someone touching their knee. Oh, it was so distressing. Oh, they touched my knee it was so awful. And but if you said, well, actually, I just saw my daughter just went in a female-only space in a women's changing room, and some man got naked in front of her. If that man's name is Julie, those women are not interested. I think it's just an extraordinary lack of courage. And I don't know quite where it comes from. Maybe it's also privilege that these women are not going to be in spaces where they're at risk. But I just say to each and every one of them, just say no to one of these men. If you're unsure whether or not they're still men, just say no. And then you'll find that maleness just rises up very, very quickly.
But do you feel alone? I mean, when you look at now who is in charge of the UK, for example, and the same thing has happened with the Biden administration in America. We know the madness there. But look at those three key figures in the government who I played at the top of the show. Keir Starmer, David Lammy, Rachel Reeves. They don't give a damn about protecting women's rights. And they are now running the country. Do you feel alone?
I guess I sort of feel like I'm in a very, I find it a party called Party of Women. I'm in a very fortuitous position almost because all of these people are so, do lack so much courage and won't say these things that I become a lone voice, I guess, in that I will say the things that need to be said. Keir Starmer apparently gets confused about sausages. So I'm thinking maybe he just doesn't know what a man is either.
Well, he clearly doesn't.
It's just a lie, though. This is the thing. It's not, and I think it's worse. It's not that they don't know. It's that they won't say. And that to me says, do I think these people are fit to run the country? No, I genuinely don't. I am quite fearful where we'll be in 5 years. And the only hope I've got is that we field candidates as Party of Women up and down the country, eventually the world. But we start with the UK and we get those conversations started. And we really are the only party, and I do mean only, that genuinely has an understanding of what this issue is. And I don't mean that reform doesn't make some great noises, and they really do. So I don't want to cast aspersions, but there is something very different about the visceral fear that a woman feels where she can hear a man's voice in her space. And I don't think you can really um, replicate that fear or explain that fear in a way that is fully comprehended unless you've experienced it. So I do feel alone, but I'm quite happy with that. At least I'm not going to get pulled down by anyone else's compromise.
The elite class might not be taking on this argument. The mainstream media might not be taking on this argument, but I certainly feel a change. J.K. Rowling has maybe been a big part of that.
Yeah.
But do you feel hope that actually ordinary people are now being prepared to have these conversations that potentially a couple of years ago they would have been too afraid to voice because there was that real fear of, oh my goodness, someone's going to call me transphobic. It's like that someone's going to call me racist thing, so we just can't have a discussion. Has J.K. Rowling and that free speech, especially with Elon Musk buying X, because I think of the return to the platform of people like Graham Linehan, who was literally banned for stating a biological reality, have allowed a conversation to take place?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I'm banned from everywhere. I was banned for 4.5 years from X. I was one of the first people to be banned for this. I was banned from Patreon. I don't earn any money off any single platform that I'm on. So I was banned a really long time ago, and I'm no one. So it's quite bizarre that people would be, um, that anybody would be banned from anywhere. But if I can be banned, I guess everyone can be. But yeah, I think X has made a really big difference. I think Donald Trump has made some noise, the right noises in this area. So I think that makes a difference. I think we've stretched the Overton window. There's been women working really hard. I've been doing this since 2016, and so there's been a lot of women working really hard to get this out. So I also think it's not just that people are frightened of being accused of transphobic. Sometimes people just don't want to get stuff wrong and they don't know what the right thing to say is. And so I have hope that truth will always out. That, we're humans, we've been on this earth for a really, really long time. And this is just another phase in something very silly that might have gone on too long, that hopefully doesn't leave too many bodies.
Do you think there's personal responsibility on folk, though, too? Because I think of, and I hate this term, but I think of the journey. It sounds very woke, but that people like Megyn Kelly have been on, and me to an extent as well, where we were working for mainstream media organizations, Kellie-Jay, where we saw the madness of being told, oh, you can't use someone's pronoun and you're going to have to write, your 1,500 word article without ever referring to Sam Smith as a he or a him. And we've come around to this idea that, no, we're not going to buy into this bullshit. Dylan Mulvaney, you are a man. And so we will call you a he, him. Do people have a personal responsibility to fight back against some of that madness too?
Yeah, 100%. But the reason you had to say things in mainstream media is because trans activists, way before any of us knew any of this, they had gone and they had undermined the truth in organizations like the Independent Press Commission, like Ofcom.
Yes.
I've got a friend actually who works at Ofcom, and I was saying to her the other day, they won't debate. And so that means that they can stop anybody talking about this issue because they refuse to debate. I think we should empty chair people that refuse to debate. And it hadn't even crossed her mind or any of her colleagues' minds that this was a very effective way of stopping people talking about it.
Do you feel like you were cancelled? I mean, you talk about the demonetization, for example, and obviously we've seen that happen to Katie Hopkins and to Tommy Robinson. It's probably very unlikely you'd get platformed in the mainstream media. Do you feel like you're more cancelled now, or actually have things started to get better?
Oh, Oh, that's a great question. Well, I'm just flying out to Australia to speak at CPAC, so I guess I can't say I'm fully cancelled. But there is a petition to try and stop my visa, so we'll see. I don't know. I've come from, I'm unlike other people in this field that the fight didn't come for me. I came for the fight. I saw that what was happening, and I decided, as someone who was a stay-at-home mother with my 4 kids, that I would start selling t-shirts and stickers to raise money to put up a billboard because we needed to talk about it. And I genuinely thought, Dan, I put this billboard up and everyone go, oh my, that's so right. She's so right. Let's all go home. That's done. And here I am, like 6 years later. In fact, it's 6 years tomorrow that the billboard was taken down.
Happy anniversary. And you know what? I know it's been difficult. I imagine it's been particularly difficult for your husband and your kids. But thank you for everything you've done. You know, I have huge respect for you. And I really believe things are changing. And I hope that the independent media will be a big part of that too, because I've seen what Megyn Kelly has done in terms of supporting you in the US and getting your message out there. And I hope that actually the death of the mainstream media will also be the death of some of this crazy ideology. But keep up the good fight, Kellie-Jay. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.